Okay, guys, here we are, episode 19, Dirty Right Rear Podcast. Myself, Jeremy Booyer, Jeremy Sutton. And this week we're going to have Kenny Dobson, promoter, owner of Jacksonville Speedway, and also promoter and director of the MOWA Sprint Car Series. And we'll be right back after this commercial and get to him.
Another new sponsor on the Dirty Right Rear Podcast is Pettis Automotive. Pettis Automotive is located in Farmington. They have a selection that is second to none. Shopping with Pettis Automotive means having access to a wealth of new and used cars, trucks, and SUVs to choose from, whether you're intrigued by a Ford, Chrysler, Dodge, Jeep, or Ram. The story never changes. Pettis Automotive has exactly what you're looking for, all at a price that never leaves your bank account feeling beaten and bruised. They have on-site collision repair, parts, and a service department. Pettis Automotive is located on Woodlawn Drive in Farmington, right off Highway 67 at the Fairgrounds exit.
Hey guys, this is Jeremy Booyer and Jeremy Sutton here with the Dirty Right Rear Podcast. We want to highlight one of our sponsors, supporters, and everything else with Expert Graphics, Powder Coating, and Fabrication. Expert Powder Coating and Fabrication is a family-owned business out of Farmington over in the industrial park. You can go over there and get some graphics, lettering, anything for your race cars. Get some powder coating done for your race cars, any other kind of stuff. Get any kind of fabrication also done with them. You can come over there and talk to Andy Moss. He's in there just plugging away at the computer, designing everything, doing whatever he can. You got Dennis in the back with his lab coat, mixing up the powder coat, really getting the stuff going. And then you got Dan over there just fabricating anything and everything you want. But if you want to hit them up, Expert Powder Coating over in Farmington at the industrial park, you can give them a call, 573-756-7324.
All right, welcome back. Welcome to the show, Kenny.
Good to be here.
How's things up in Jacksonville going? I know you're prepping for your season opener, which is the World of Outlaws, and by the time this airs, it'll be 2 days.
Really? Yeah, we're looking forward to it, and got a lot of work to do to get ready. As you know, we're recording this a little advanced. It's a work day, Saturday here at the Speedway, and knocking out a few of those projects that we told the Outlaws we'd get done after last year. And as always, they'll get done, but there's a time and place for everything,
We'll try not to keep you too long.
No, we're good.
We know this is going to be a stressful week being opener, and then even more stressful when you got to throw out the Outlaws being your first show. Does that put a little more pressure on you a little bit, or are you just used to it?
Sure. We were supposed to have one race before the Outlaws, and we're Fairgrounds racetrack, just like you guys are familiar with, and there are some improvements they're doing to the grandstand, and the window to do that. The weather's got to be right. It can't be it needs to be before the fair. I'm racing every week or two, and it just kind of, the weather didn't cooperate a lot, and so I just was like, hey, we'll cancel our first race. We always like to have one tune-up before the Outlaws. Make sure we're in the place we need to be with the racetrack. But I have all the confidence in the world with Tommy Casson that does that for us. That last year the Outlaws were opener, and it was a hell of a show. So I think we can pull it off again. So we canceled our week one, and just to give more time to the crews, to the fair board, to get their work done, and we'll be ready to go.
It's got to be awesome to be able to host, a World Outlaw event, man. It's just got to be, a dream from years ago. You've had to have been a race fan for a long time, and then to be able to host a show like that, it's got to be just awesome.
Yeah, we did our first one, and somebody will correct me. I'm the world's worst with dates and names, but anyway, we did our first one in 2014.
Wow.
They'd never been here before, and it was, at the time, Tom Deary was sort of in charge of the Outlaws with World Racing Group out of Charlotte. And I'd been down there maybe the year before for a promoters meeting or something. And we don't seat a lot of people here, old covered grandstand. And I just started asking about the price and stuff. And I don't know, just kind of wanted to do it. There's there's just no way that really made sense to do here. But I don't know. We do this for fun. It's not
It's the
business
passion.
to us. It's a hobby.
Yep.
Yeah, that first year, we're 14 years later. The ticket price hasn't changed, but that first year, that ticket price, people, I don't blame them. I charge $50 for a grandstand seat. I charge $100 for a VIP seat for that show. It gets you a reserve seat, a pre-party. We have a band and a party beforehand. It gets you access to the pits ahead of time. And, so I just put it out there. Like, we want to do this. Here's the math. And, I've got to sell 400 or so of these VIP things with $100. If you want them to be here, it's just what it costs. And everybody else can show up for $50 and we can get it all taken care of. And everybody came together and we did it. We had a great first one in 2014. Christopher Bell won his first outlaw event here. I'm pretty sure that was his first outlaw event.
Yeah.
And we did it. And then we kind of were in the mode of, that's an every 2 or 3 year thing for us. And it's kind of how it went. Every now and then we'd get one and everybody would get hyped about it. And I kind of had the attitude that, you can't pull this off every year. It's just, it's not the work on our end. It's just, you got to have people wanting it when you're a place this small. And then we did that again last year. We've done it 2 or 3 or 4 times now. Did last year's show, and it was just a great show. And it felt like we kind of earned our wings of being able to be on the schedule every year. I'm not saying that happens permanently, but certainly got asked, it was, race of the year. We got asked back. We made good friends there at World Racing Group over the years. And I wasn't sure, really whether we could on our end do this 2 years in a row because I didn't want to raise the price. And that math works as long as this place is full. That math from 14 years ago still works. We don't need to make any more. I don't care about that. I just want it to sort of float, right? At least be close. And people have done. Everybody, not everybody's renewed, but our renewal rates 80% or something. We aren't having to go out and sell a whole lot of new tickets. Plenty. And then at this point, as this airs, I hope at about this point I've made an announcement that the grandstands are sold out, but it's a free-for-all in the pits, plenty of seating back there, and that's where everybody had fun last year anyway. So great viewing back there. It's a good time. So $50 actually gets you, same 50 that could get you in the grandstand. It's a different kind of show. You can't this show go from the pits to the grandstand. Once you're over in the pits, you got to stay there because I've promised all the seats in the grandstand. So, but we have everything back there you need, and it's a blast. You get to walk around and see the cars do the pit thing, and take that whole experience in, and still be able to sit and watch what I hope is one hell of a race.
Oh yeah, that's the fan's dream, being in the pits and stuff, man. And that's pretty. And I was getting ready to say, every time I think I've seen you have one, you usually always sell out the grandstands, correct?
Yeah. There's been a few times, I know my numbers, and I can remember a year or two. My wife kind of takes the tickets here, and I'm like, "Girl, you can sell 100 tickets." Like, that's all I got. And we hold more people than I sell tickets. It's just odd. Our grandstand doesn't have a lot of aisles. It has 4 aisles for 6 kind of wide sections, and we don't fill up in the middle. It's tough to just get people. If you allocated everyone, I call this butt math, 2 feet per butt. We sit on old boards here, good fresh boards, but they're boards. If I did my 2 foot per butt, which is, I'm a big old boy. There's 2 foot 20 for my butt. I could set 2,000 people up there. There's 4,000 feet of boards, so to speak. But you got to do this, and then you kind of back that out. And we've done it enough times where when I get 13 or 1,400 people up there, everybody's looking around at me kind of pissed off, saying it's full, nowhere to sit. And I've already done the math. I'm like, no. There's 300 seats left up there, right? Go find yourself one. You got to crawl over everybody, and everybody's
Yeah.
spread out and shit, and everybody's got to squeeze together. So I just go at about 1,400 people up there. There's nobody that can argue with me that there's not a place for them to sit if somebody scoots their ass over a little bit, right? And we just call it a day at that. Everybody else can go to the pits and have a blast.
That's one thing, that I wanted to touch on with you is, relatively speaking, to most tracks that the Outlaws run, seating wise, and obviously track size as well. But Jacksonville is a small track, and I know it takes a lot behind the scenes. And like you said, you had to be very transparent in your numbers when you first start doing this. And I remember the posts, and it was like, look, folks, this is what we have to do to make this work. And I feel like personally, not only that way, or that way, but you're like that with everything. And I feel like that's one of the reasons you're successful is your transparency with everybody.
Yeah, successful is relative. We keep the doors open. This isn't, I'd hate for this to be my business. There's a couple people that can run a racetrack. Around the country, there's more than a couple, but like in our area, there's a few people that can run racetracks and eat. And man, I have the greatest respect for those. I'm not saying if I did this, as a full-time job that, yeah, we might not have a little more seating and maybe weekly I could put a few more people here if it's all I did every day or my team. But, if you can make a living running a racetrack, you could probably run Google or some big ass company like that, right? Like you got your shit together.
We down here in Farmington at Empire Speedway, we had Daryl, and he said he just barely got to talk to you about some stuff. And with you guys having a fair board, him having a fair board, he's like, he told us, he goes, I've got to try to get a hold of that guy some more. He goes, he's got it going on, man. And he goes, I think he can lead me in the right direction. And I said, well, we haven't got to talk to him yet, but we will. And he goes, man, I've got to listen to him. And that's how I got to go after is that guy. He goes, because he's got it together.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. I really do have a great team, and everybody stays in their lanes, man. It's just kind of how, I manage things in my day job. And, as we sit here, Tommy Cassins does the track prep, and somehow help him or whatever a little bit, but that's his deal. There's not a day that I'm going to sit in the grandstands or tell him what he needs to do to his racetrack. He knows the important things. There's things that we do here that we race with a little more moisture than most. And, we're a heavy, we try to be a heavy, fast racetrack. I want you to win that race. If I want a good race, and I don't have anything against the bottom, right? But at this joint, the way it sets up, I want you to have to stuck that thing on the wall and driven your ass off to win a car race here.
Well, the wall puts people in the stands.
And that's what, Tommy gives us. Got Hank Pollock, who just takes care of my infield and my help on the other side of the grandstand. I don't get in his lane. He's the one running the crew here today, doing a bunch of stuff. He knows what he's doing. He doesn't need me telling him what to do. He doesn't tell me how to put butts in the seats. And what I worry about is this side of the racetrack, getting people here, making sure they have a good time, scheduling, and kind of taking care of the business stuff. But it's not something, some people can do it alone. It takes time. It's certainly hard to do as a part-time thing. You got to get yourself a good team together, and I've got one.
Yeah, I would say you definitely do, because we have a lot of people, between sprint cars from our area and like we follow midgets a lot. I have a couple micros, and I know every single class of cars that comes up there. Never a bad word. So your team definitely needs applauded, because everyone looks forward to going up there, and they love the condition it races. And you can watch a lot of the YouTube videos on a lot of midget guys, and they just rant and rave about it too. So that's pretty cool.
Yeah, and that's all Tommy. I just make sure the beer's cold.
Right?
Yeah, and I feel like that over the years, the perception of Jacksonville has changed, because it didn't. The track prep. This is back before you had it, but Jacksonville was known as a rough bull ring, and I don't think that's the case anymore.
I just think you have to sort of know what kind of show you want to put on. And there's nothing wrong with cowboy, and trust me, we could be cowboy up Friday, first race of the year after a winter. I have no idea what that, I know it will be the best it can be. What that is, I have no way to know.
Right.
And, but typically, we've gotten pretty smooth and fast around here. And I think that builds excitement. And, I think that's what you want. It doesn't hurt now and then to have a different kind of race night. And, maybe it's around the bottom a little bit and different guys can, or something slick where, different guys, have a little more of a chance, but night in and night out, I want it to be thrilling, right? And to me, thrilling racing is fast racing in tight quarters and having to see these guys be at their best.
Yep. I haven't been to Jacksonville in person, and gosh, it's been over 10 years, but I don't miss many nights on Dirt Vision, especially if there's sprint cars in there.
It's helped us a lot too. We, like I said, we've made friends in Charlotte over the years, some great people down there. And Brian Dunlap that kind of runs Dirt Vision, started Dirt Vision. Always been a good friend to us. And as they started, putting a few tracks together, years ago, I goofed around in that stuff a little bit. We had a little stream, actually before Dirt Vision.
Yep. We
were broadcasting on YouTube every night live for free.
I remember that.
Just as we did it a year or two. And it was kind of a thing for me to be like, yeah, it's free. And I got people watching it. And I'm going to make them pay. But it's been a great partnership that's, exposed us, all over the country. And it's probably, people debate whether streaming helps or hurts a racetrack.
That was the question I was going to ask you, your opinion on that.
There are nights it does. There's not a doubt about it. I know which nights those are. I plan around those. I don't plan around them. I know, I'll say in the racing business is what streaming has probably caused as a negative, and there's a lot of positives, but as a negative, I think if we're being smart as a race promoter, we probably cancel a little quicker than we used to, cancel a little easier. Our threshold for racing through bad weather probably has lowered. You can't be expecting people to drive an hour and a half when they know they're going to get rained on, when they can sit at home and watch it. You really have to use yourself as the judge on that. And it's like, would I go? Hell no, I wouldn't go. All right. Nobody else is coming either. Right. That first little bit of rain, I think we all ought to get it. I don't do that. I try to cancel at least a day in advance and try to be straight with people, and if it involves talking money, I'll talk money, on social media on why we're canceling or racer expense coming, thinking we're going to pull the plug. We all got to work together. Everybody's on a tight budget, whether it's the racer or the racetrack. And as long as we kind of look out for each other, we can get through the weather. But certainly, streaming has probably caused more cancellations. But at the same time, I know our track has grown in status. I know from our Outlaw ticket sales that people are coming from a longer distance, and that can only be because they're watching us week in and week out.
Yeah, I like to hear that. I'm a fan of the streaming. It's Jacksonville's 2.5 hours for me on Friday night, so it's tough to get up there. But I enjoy being able to tune in on Dirt Vision.
Yeah, and something else I kind of feel like has happened because of that is I think your circle for any race, big race or weekly race, has gotten smaller. I kind of view my fans, I get people from further away, but my weekly racing fan, he needs to live within 20 minutes of me. I'll get people to go further, but I can't count on
I
can't count on anybody to drive more than 20 minutes to come watch me, even if they're a big race fan, because they can sit at home if they're an hour away. It's the same thing. Would I go, right?
Right.
If I'm within 20 minutes of that racetrack, yeah, I'm probably going to go. You better have something really serious happening for me to, on a Friday night, want to hop in a car, drive an hour and a half, and then get home, midnight or later, and when I could have sat on the couch and watched it, right? It has kind of, I think, so you gotta make your locals more interested in your show because you got to count on them to sell tickets. Those are people you got to count on.
We want to welcome Premier Door Company to the list of sponsors for the Dirty Right Rear podcast. Keith and Paige Jackson with Premier Door Company out of Terre-de-Lac. They do all things garage door related. We got sales, service, and installation of any garage door equipment, garage door openers, any garage door problems you may have. You can call 573-783-7775 or look them up on Facebook at Premier Door Company.
Hey guys, Jeremy Booyer, Jeremy Sutton here of the Dirty Right Rear podcast, and also Chad Winch of the Barn. We got to thank our new big sponsor that we just picked up, Double D Motorsports. Double D Motorsports in Farmington specializes in all types of race car parts, from new and used, even full rollers and race-ready cars. Katie and Daryl are notorious for making full buyouts and buying a lot of people's stuff out. You never know what they will have over there at Double D. Check back every week to see what kind of new stuff they have arriving. Plus, get your weekly items for your racing, such as oils, lubes, tear-offs, seat belts, fuel jugs, all kind of miscellaneous items. You can go to Double D Motorsports Mondays and Thursdays, 10 to 6, Tuesdays and Wednesdays, 10 to 3, or you can call them, see if they'll meet you over there, 573-747-7816. Their address is 2882 Highway 67, Farmington, Missouri. It's just south of Farmington. Go over to Double D Motorsports and get all your racing needs.
Turner Services, they are located in St. Louis. They specialize in concrete flat work, asphalt paving and repair. They haul rock and dirt. They do bobcat and excavator work, retaining walls, draining issues, concrete tear outs, and snow plowing. Need something else done that's not listed? Give Cody a call at 314-397-2890, and he may just do what you need.
Hey guys, this is Jeremy Booyer and Jeremy Sutton of the Dirty Right Rear podcast. We want to shout out to one of our new sponsors, which we've talked about quite a bit lately, but Coles County Speedway, actually the oldest micro track in the United States, opened up in 1956. They're going to be running every Saturday night, Outlaw Wing, Non-Wing, A-Class Wing, Restrictor, Junior Sprint, and Mod Lights. They'll also have several 2- and 3-day big shows all throughout the season that they're going to have, and is the home of the WFO Micro Series also, and you can check them out at colescountyspeedway.com or on their Facebook page, and their address is 10743 East County Road 900 North, Mattoon, Illinois.
So how long have you been promoter of Jacksonville?
I would say 13, 12, 13, 14 years. I don't know exactly.
Yeah, so I remember, back in the mid 2000, I'm going to go 2010 era, there was the relationship with the city council and Jacksonville Speedway wasn't the best. But
right. So it's another big thing.
Split now. So
yeah, totally. And part of that was through some work, but here's what we do. Farmington's not a whole lot different. There's a lot of towns like this. I just spoke at our local Kiwanis club about 2 weeks ago and this was a big part of it. I mean, like, we race cars in the middle of a town, okay, on a Friday night. I don't know how much longer, like, if we look forward 20 years, right, the way the world's going, and not being political here at all, I mean, is that even possible? So right. I don't sit here thinking, hey, we're going to be doing this forever, and hopefully we can, but you got to stand back and say, we're here at the blessing of our neighbors. Like, if they all really got pissed off or tired of it, it doesn't take a lot. Now, fortunately, my best friend in the whole world is the mayor, and we have some aldermen that are great race fans now. But I mean, there was a little of us getting involved in that a little bit, not overtly, but kind of finding the right people to with some common sense and the right priorities to and support just supporting the right people to be in charge of the town. And then you also just you gotta be good. Like I totally, except for that outlaw race last year, I don't race on weeknights for the most part. This year we don't have any weeknight races. I don't have practices on the week. All this stuff I used to do when I started. It's, hey, I live less than a mile away, quarter mile away. It all depends on which way the wind's blowing here. And my kids, they're in college and beyond now, but like when they were in school, and they didn't come to the racetrack. My kids aren't big race fans. My wife would bitch at me when I got home, and I was, she leaves when the ticket sales are done, and if we're making all kinds of noise, and the kids weren't sleeping when they were younger, I'd be the one catching shit, right? So you got to be aware of that. And so we try to be done. We have an 11 o'clock curfew. For years, we would kind of run over that. I just schedule shows different to where we don't even really have that chance unless something crazy happens. We tear down the fence or something. I try to get everybody on the road by 10 o'clock, headed home, get the place, quieted down for the town, and nobody seems to gripe.
Yeah, I've noticed that over the years that's, I mean, you seem to, 10:30 most Friday nights you're done, and the town and the neighbors have got to love that for sure. Because like I said, that wasn't always the case.
No, it wasn't. Everybody, everybody can make noise, make noise, but you just, if you give a voice to the race fan a little bit, right? We have, so it's community of race fans, right? And, I think if they're taking a good message forward to the community, that they're enjoying their time here, the businesses, are seeing business on Friday. And I think just sort of as people talk out in the community, it takes time, but just the attitude change. I would say 10, 12, 15 years ago, if we took a vote in this town on whether this racetrack should be here, it'd be 50-50 at best, right? I think if we took a vote now, it'd be 80 to 90% saying, keep the place.
That's saying something.
That can change in a heartbeat. Right?
Oh, for sure.
Start pissing people off and doing the wrong things a few nights in a row, and all it takes is one or two guys with a passion to make noise, and you got a whole different problem.
Yeah, I think that speaks volumes for what you're doing up there, because I feel like most tracks in the country are not that fortunate. Even if they're, Farmington or Empire here, we don't have a lot of, close, not in a neighborhood, but
right.
There's within a quarter mile a lot of homes, and they gripe and complain. And
I think we as an industry just sort of also have to not fool ourselves, right? All this, my dad ran this place for a short period of time, 3, 4, 5 years when I was in grade school. I mean, we're talking I don't know, like 56, however many, in the late 70s, early 80s. Okay. And, I remember back then we had a neighbor, house is still here, who, was his pain in the ass, right? Yeah. And it was an issue back then. And now we fast forward this far, and we just have to be real. Like, all this personal liberty stuff and all that, people do have a right to go to bed, right? They do kind of have a right to cook out without listening to race cars, right? I get that. So you got to be aware that, someday, things just move in that direction. It's how quick they move. And we have to be aware that, if we don't do the right things as an industry, that's a risk. And be a good neighbor. And if you're on a racetrack, be a good neighbor.
So let's talk a little bit about the history of Jacksonville. How long's it been around?
Yeah, so one thing we did when we started here, we had a great guy named Wayne Stearns, who was, every track kind of has a few of them, just a kind of all ate up with the history of the racetrack, right? Great guy, helps us out a ton. And I just said, hey, you're the track historian. Now, I don't know that we needed a track historian or whatever. It's so helpful to have someone who's really into that be able to remind you of, I'm down here on a Friday night, Wayne will just come up and say something to me. Hey, I got this piece of whatever from 1950 out of it. So I've learned through him a little bit more of the history. We were racing motorcycles at this fairgrounds. I think Wayne's going to tell me I'm wrong. I'm going to say in the 1910s, somewhere in there.
Holy cow.
We used to have a half mile, not that long ago, had a half mile horse track around this place. They took it out kind of. Our fair is a big concert venue. We have huge concerts here during our fair, and it just kind of was in the way. Nobody used it. And I'm saying after World War II in about the 50s, this quarter mile track kind of got built somewhere in the 50s. And I think there's been racing on and off here since then. Through the 60s, there were racing cars here. And a lot of it did still happen on the half mile in the 50s and 60s. I think our quarter mile track kind of probably 1960s or so. And it's pretty much been open since then. There's been a few years here and there where it has.
Yeah, that's impressive.
That's wild.
Yeah, that I never made. Well, I had never been to Jacksonville until 20. What was MOWA's first year? Was it 2011?
Yeah, it would have been right about then.
Yeah. That's when I started. 2011, I lived in St. Louis, and I think I went to Jacksonville that year because I didn't work weekends or anything. I didn't work Fridays. So I went to Jacksonville more than I did Peeveley or Farmington. I loved it. I got it down to Kim Stewart that lives there in Jacksonville showed me a shortcut, and I got it down to about an hour and 40 minutes. So I was loving that. And but I had often heard of the Jacksonville name, and especially back in the day when I was a kid, the Standridge guys, and everybody would come Jacksonville on Friday night, then you'd go to Farmington on Saturday.
Right.
So I always knew of Jacksonville, but I had never been there since 2011.
Part of Jacksonville, and I don't think we would have any behalf of the success we had, is Springfield had a great little speedway called Springfield Speedway that was really in Illinois. Like, it was the place to be. And everyone from Jacksonville went to, and Jacksonville back in the 70s or 80s was really a fender car racetrack. I know when my dad ran it, it was too small, or we had all kinds of excuses why we didn't run sprint cars. The sprint car track was Springfield Speedway. And there's just the families in Springfield that grew up around that racetrack, the culture. Springfield really is an open wheel. Just a race town in general, but certainly an open wheel town. And you have your Wyants and your Standridges and your Mohans and all of these people that there's such a big community that just grew up and lived at Springfield Speedway. And then it closed. I'm going to get in trouble. I should know that date, but late 80s, early 90s. And Butch Wood, who ran this place for a lot of years before me, kind of started bringing sprint cars over here. Changed track around a little bit. And, we got into where we had fencing and walls and some of that stuff. And so it kind of became, the replacement, if you will, for Springfield Speedway. It kind of took on a different, and that was a lot during that Jacksonville Farmington time where Jacksonville Friday, Farmington Saturday. But a lot of what we do here in that tradition comes out of Springfield Speedway. And so do a lot of our fans and teams and drivers.
You mentioned the Standridge name. That's a name I know fairly well. That's probably the name I know the best out of Illinois. Ronnie Standridge was my god when I was growing up. I thought that guy was the best thing ever. And now I know Jeremy a little bit. Robbie, I talked to Robbie quite a bit. I actually talked to Robbie Peeveley last night, and he told me you and him had a phone call this week, so he was telling me all about that. But then
love hanging out with Robbie. He just the guy. You talk about a guy who just finds a way to do it and does it for all the right reasons. Robbie's my guy, and Robbie and Nice usually some of our last ones out of the bar here on the right days, and we have a good time hanging with them after the races as well. And like Randy Standard is my flagman, And then Jeremy started MOWA with me, and big influence there, and a good racer, and his daughter's racing micros now. So they've been instrumental for sure.
Robbie did tell me some not bad news, some news that I don't like to hear. He told me that this year's probably his last year. He's ready to hang it up. So I hope
Robbie had a last year a few different times. I know he had a last year before we started our 305 class.
Yep.
And then I've heard last year before. Robbie, this will be Robbie's last year until somebody offers him a ride next year. Right, this might be Robbie's last year of bringing his own shit to the racetrack. But Robbie didn't pass him up a ride. I can tell you that.
Yeah, that's true. I know he was having some vision problems, dizzy problems last year. He told us yesterday he's got all that lined out and he's ready to go.
Good.
Yeah. I kind of dropped the ball. Every guest that we've interviewed so far, I've known a little bit, and you're one that I knew absolutely nothing about. So I messaged Jimmy Hurley, Jason Keith, Jeremy Stanger, just try to get some stories on you.
Right.
And I kind of dropped the ball there because Jeremy's like, hey, call me. I'll tell you some stuff. I'm like, okay.
Right.
This was like Wednesday. I said, hey, I'll call you Thursday. Well, Thursday come and gone. I forgot. Friday, yesterday, I was at Peeveley all day and all night.
Sure.
And then, so Jeremy, if you watch this, I'm sorry I dropped the ball and calling you there, but I did hear some Jason Keith here. He's a local guy here.
Yeah, sure.
He had a lot of great things to say about you.
Good guy. And Jimmy Hurley, God, I wish I could talk that guy in a racetrack again. Just one of my favorite people in the sport. I don't tell him that because the big head and all that kind of stuff. Actually, about a year ago, he'll show up here for the Outlaws and show up every now and then. But I was in Springfield for work. It was, I think, the legislature's in session. I was politicking or something, and there's this bar I kind of just like to go to, or whatever. And mid-afternoon, and I just pop in this bar and look down, and Jimmy was taking a little work break too. And what my eyes are running into you here. So man, he can drive a race car, probably still could drive a race car, and Farmington, a great Farmington, Jacksonville guy as well.
Yeah,
Just wish we could get him back into a race car. He's Mr. Dad and Mr. Husband, and probably making a lot smarter financial decisions. I know since his dad passed in life, but great guy, one of my favorites.
I miss watching.
It throws me that kind of thing. I say all these guys are great guys. God, I've had some great arguments and fights with Jimmy Hurley and Jason Keith and Jeremy Standridge and Robbie Standridge. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, that's what I love about it. Like we're all great friends, but God, every now and then we can have a great argument on a racetrack. You just got to respect the guy when he has his helmet on, and for 10 minutes after he takes it off, right? And
that's one of the things Jason told me is he's a no bullshit guy. He's going to treat you the same no matter who you are, but he'll listen to you. And then if you're wrong, he's going to tell you. But then afterwards, we'll have a beer together.
Yeah. I can't think of many people that have raced out here that, I can't have a beer with after the race is over. And sometimes it's a little smirk after you just kind of got into it out there, and you kind of slide them over a beer and kind of give them a wink and see if today's the day, or we got to still keep bitching at each other tomorrow. But a little space, we're all on the same team, right? And they're good people. They were good people before. You had your disagreement, and they're still going to be a good person the next day. Their heart didn't change. So that's kind of the way I look at it.
Yeah, for sure. Racers, not just racers, promoters, they're under a lot of stress, and, there's people say things they don't mean, and, wish they could take it back later for sure. But sometimes the heat moment.
Yeah. Time and space, usually fixes about anything. What I don't like is a promoter. And I think maybe that's something that I think racers have learned about us a little bit is, and hopefully they learn it at their own racetrack, is I don't catch a lot of crap on social media anymore. And I think, like we have our dispute. Damn it, you got my number. You can text me, you can call me. I'm going to answer. I'm going to reply. Let's keep it between us. Let's not give the place get a bunch of drama going. And I just, we're all doing it as a hobby. Who needs the damn drama, right? Like, yeah, we can make bad calls out here every night. Like I'm not, just like the first base umpire can get it wrong. We can get it wrong, and there ain't a damn thing I can do about it either. Maybe, if we really screwed it up, I'll just pay you kind of for what I cost you or something, But we got to recognize we can be wrong, and they got to recognize they can be wrong too, but we don't have to take it to the rest of the world. And, every now and then, happens a couple times a year, got to be just pissed off and on his way home and just goes there. And I don't reply, they get a text from me, usually the next day, like, hey man, that kind of wasn't cool. If you got a problem, call me. I'm not pissed off. Just give me a call. Let's talk about it. And usually that disappears. Or I don't care what you post, but also know I'm going to hold you to what you said too, right? If you aren't coming back, better not come back, right? As simple as that. As simple as that. Yeah. I'll give you about once to do that, but I do kind of have that promoters hear that all the time. I ain't never coming back, and we joke about it, but man, I think I don't know. I just think you're putting yourself in a. The only thing you can do is make a fool of yourself, right? When you show back up again, right? Because you're coming back, right? Don't make a big scene that you're never coming back, because I know you're coming back, and you're going to be the one that's embarrassed, not me, right? We don't need all that crap. If we got it wrong, give me a call. We'll try to figure it out. And I do not give a crap who wins the car race. I just want it to be a good car race, right? I think these guys know I don't care who wins. Every now and then, sure, you want your, just as a fan or kind of as a part of the family, you want your guy who hadn't won in a while or something like that to have a good night. But our people don't care who won it. It is what it is. And nobody out here officiating gives 2 cents about who's going to win that night. Like, it's not even, and I know racers can feel that way in the heat of the moment. They like this guy or that guy. No, I actually like you all, right? I want you all to be safe. I want you all to, put on a good show and enjoy what you're doing and get along, right?
Right.
Oh, yeah.
That's refreshing to hear.
Yeah, no kidding. We don't get to hear a lot of stuff like that, but that's good stuff right there, mostly on a promoter side.
Yeah, but I feel like going back, I feel like that's one of the reasons, I'll use this term loosely, successful, but you're a very popular promoter, for your track size, your limit, you have a heck of a schedule, but as being as open and honest and transparent with everybody, I feel like that's 90% of the battle with you.
I think that's what people want to hear. And then when they do get mad, they'll get over it quicker, or they're, something's going on, because they're like, man, I can probably talk this out, or, this or that or whatever. But I think that helps a racer get over the madness of the time.
Right.
Sure. I don't care. They can text me. I'm a dirty SOB all they want. I'm not going to hold that against them 3 hours after a race. You put that shit on the internet, and I might pretend I'm not unhappy, but I'm pretty unhappy about it. And everybody around me knows it, right? And
the problem,
and don't worry, they're the first ones to come up and say, "Do you see what he put on the internet?" And usually the people around me can shoot that down on their own. I don't have to get personally involved, right?
The problem I see a lot of times on the internet, somebody will go on the internet to complain, and then you get 50 of his buddies. Oh yeah, that was bull crap. And 90% of them aren't there.
They weren't there, and they don't even know what's going on. They're just to take up for their buddy.
And that's going to happen. Like you gotta just expect that, right? Like if something happened to me and I was mad about something, I put it on the internet. All my friends that wouldn't know which street the racetrack's on would be there having my bag, right? All that kind of stuff, right?
Right.
You can't take that personally.
Yeah,
right?
and they're always loud too, man.
Yes, they're loud. Yes.
We'll go ahead. I know you got a busy schedule, so we're gonna go ahead and get ready to wrap this up here. We got some more stuff to talk about here, but one thing.
Don't forget that MOWA race down in Farmington real quick.
Oh yeah. Well, we got the schedule
right up.
I know we're busting on the outlaw thing real big for you and everything because
I appreciate that.
Of course, wants to talk about that, but we've got the schedule pulled up here. We'll run through that if you don't mind, real quick. And our race at Farmington, man, that was pretty cool. And I think Rick Miller actually reached out to me, and he said, "Hey, you know Daryl, don't you?" And he goes, "We got to get them. We got to kind of get these tracks back together that had the old MOWA races." And I said, "Yeah." I said, "I'll give him Daryl's number, and we can kind of get it all going and see what happens." And Daryl happened to be on vacation or something that week, and then the next week he sent me a message. And I said, "Hey, do you ever get a hold of him or do anything?" He's like, "Oh yeah, it's ready." And I was like, "Oh, right. Okay."
So we've been gone. It has nothing to do with Farmington or promoters or anything like that. It was just time to come back. Selfish, there's 3 or 4 of us that kind of do this thing, and unlike some bigger race series or other race series, there's no money in MOWA. Like we have $1,000 sanction fee. I refuse to raise it, and everything else goes to the racer, and that $1,000 goes to the top 10 for tow money, right? So there's no gravy for the race series, right? We're just going to put on races, 4 or 5 of us, and it's more of a, do I really want to? I'll say if we go back a little bit, do I really want to get out of Farmington at midnight and drive 4 hours home just to put on a car? You know what I mean? It from our center, it's not the closest. We try to race a little closer to home. Probably selfish, but I think things are changing down there a little bit. Where hopefully we do get to head home a little earlier, right? And for a racer, that's one thing. But for me to round up 3 or 4 guys, it takes a couple people to do this, to say, hey, you want to just shoot down to Farmington for the night just to put on a race, and because you have nothing better to do with your life, right? I don't really have much to pay you or anything. We got to, we try to make a smaller circle. We aren't trying to be some big time race across the country kind of thing, make money off of it. MOWA started during one of those gaps where Jacksonville was struggling, and we wanted a place to race sprint car. Like, I don't want that culture to die. It was about a year before I took over Jacksonville, so we kind of just did it to give people a place to race, and the goal was always to stay within 2 hours of Springfield as our home base if we could, and not run up a lot of, there's things when you run that kind of race series where, let's keep things straight. Let's not go where we have to spend nights. Let's not need the toter home. Let's not burn through a lot of diesel, and let's try to sleep in our own beds if we can. And those kind of things just factor into what I'd call a good, solid regional race series that's not trying to be something it's not. We try to go to racetracks, put on good shows for people. A lot of these tracks, it's the only sprint car race of the year. That's not the case in Farmington. And expose them to the sprint cars a little bit, give our guys a different track to race at, and try to not burn up tires, try not to use a lot of diesel, right? I don't, to where, so far it's worked for 12, 13, 14 years, and hope it continues when I'm done with it.
Yeah, I know we're both looking forward to the MOWA return to Farmington. It's been,
Yep.
gosh, so I want to say 7-8 years probably
Right, sure.
since they've been back. So we're both pumped for that. And
yeah, we're going to team up with Daryl, and we're going to try to get some kind of promotion thing to run with it, and just trying to help him out and help you guys out, obviously. But we're gonna back that show pretty good and try to really get everybody there and try to get some people to the stands and let everybody know how big of a deal that we could possibly have this back and just do some stuff. We got to get some bigger stuff down here for Farmington, and having that is just, it's going to be a great event.
Yeah, it is. So
looking schedule here, I believe Friday, May 9th is the MOWA show at Farmington, or I'm sorry, at Jacksonville, and then at Farmington the next night, the 10th, right? So is that a back-to-back weekend?
Yeah, I would say you're probably right. I'm sitting here without a schedule in front of me. I thought Farmington was...
Yeah, no, I was wrong. Yeah,
May 3rd.
Saturday, May 3rd.
May 3rd is Farmington.
Right, I thought it was a week before that, but I didn't want to... Yeah, we're good. Yep. But, it's something we also kind of do. Like, most race series schedule weekends, and I get that. If you have a toter, if you're far from home, we prefer to just go shoot somewhere for a night and be home sleeping in your own bed.
Yeah,
that makes sense. We'll touch on some of the highlights on the Jacksonville schedule here. So you got a bunch of MOWA shows, which Jacksonville is the home track for MOWA. Another show that I'm looking forward to, it's going to be a great weekend. Friday, June 13th, you got the IRA sprint cars coming to town, and then they're going to be at Peeveley the following night. But that's going to be a good night and a big car count.
Yeah, it will be. Steve Sinclair that runs the IRA and I have worked together for years. We have a great relationship. We've done some co-sanctioned stuff, but I probably talk to him every week, probably. There is something about, like, from the race team perspective on a co-sanction, and he is the same way. Like, what we don't like, 40 car shows are great for the fans, but when only 24 of them are leaving with a check,
right?
More than $100 for tow money or whatever, like, you're sending 15 guys home with nothing, and that's not sustainable, right? So, like, the big car counts are great for the fan, promoters like them, but you got to keep your racers fed too. So, in our world, a 25 to 30 car show, most everybody's getting paid, right? Something, at least getting a tire paid for, hopefully. So we don't do it a lot, but we just wanted to do something at Jacksonville, and the new promoter at Peeveley came along, and we just want to be a little careful with car count down there, because we knew Farmington, Farmington cars need to be at Farmington. I don't know if Daryl decided to or not run against that show, but we don't need to go down there trying to drag cars from Farmington to put a show on. We got to bring our own, like, if Farmington is going to be open, right? So that's where it was better for us to kind of team up for that show, to where we aren't coming down there saying, I need your cars, I got to steal your cars. It's not how we do things. So It is going to be a great weekend, and that should be a weekend where we have two really nice car counts.
Yeah. I know Daryl took that weekend off.
That's good.
Yeah, I know for sure he's not running sprint cars. He might be running like I
think it's a modified show, or something else is going on.
Sure. And I'll tell you what, that's a great cooperative move. I think he should get some credit for that. Not a lot of tracks, will do that. It's easy to get defensive and say, you aren't coming down here stealing my cars, or I'm going to play defense. And I'm keeping my cars here so you can't have them, that kind of thing. Right. We need more of that, and that's good.
Yep. We'll touch on a couple other shows here. I know Friday, September 12th is a big one, the Carolyn Shoe Memorial. I hope I'm saying her name right. I know that's...
And they're saying it perfect. Carolyn was another founder of MOWA, so to speak. Just can't even do her justice. Like, just she raised so much money for racers in and around Springfield. All these race parties we do where racers have a big party to raise money. Carolyn was the person who like organized and got all the shit to auction, food, and her and Pam Crawford, who was a scorer for me, who passed away also in the last few years, and Nancy Standards and a few others, like just really built those things. And she was always here for the racer, always here for the racer. And Kenzie, her daughter, is the scorer for us at MOWA. And Carolyn was an important part of Jacksonville Speedway and the MOWA series without any doubt. And it's a great night for us to honor her.
I didn't personally know her, but I know when she passed, there was I seen a lot of people in the sprint car world that was touched by her, and
yeah,
I knew she was an important person. Then a couple weeks after that, we got a show that I imagine Jeremy will probably be at for sure. October 3rd and 4th, Extreme Midgets, 410 Sprints, and WFO Micros. That'll be a good weekend.
Yeah, and the bad part is I'm looking forward to the WFO Micros more than all of it.
I understand.
But just I have fun in the game there.
Yeah, that's another thing we do with our racing group friends. They come here. This year it won't be their championship. Last year was their championship. We had their little banquet down here in the bar afterwards. And again, it's a great weekend. We love midgets here.
Yeah, those are awesome.
For Extreme, we ran them a little more because I had this kind of weekly show we would do a little bit more. And the midget schedule, when you get USAC, Extreme, and kind of Power Eye, like they're too busy now to just come race a little stuff in Jacksonville now and then. And so, yeah, anytime we can have them, we like to have them, but you don't get to just, it's definitely a traveling class now. It's not, I'd love some, the D2 midgets, maybe we run them a little bit more now. Kind of fill that space a little bit, but you just can't have a local midget show. And that's something that I really, really, as we get all these sprint car series going and all that kind of stuff, we really got to pay attention and make sure, like a track like Farmington, a track like Jacksonville, that, that there's still a place in the world to have weekly, regular, local sprint car racing, right? And that everybody's not out on the road spending hundreds of thousands of dollars traveling, a year, and that you can come to your local track and race a sprint car.
It was one thing last night at Peeveley. We was doing a lot reminiscing over the years and over the drivers who have cut their teeth at Farmington or drivers,
right,
that cut their teeth at Jacksonville. But, we talked about in the Midwest, as far as weekly sprint car shows over the, over the history or, relatively speaking, you've had Farmington, you've had Jacksonville, you've had Knoxville. Those are about the Midwest 3 tracks that run sprint cars pretty much weekly.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
And I got to tell you, I don't know, down by you guys have a great fan base. My sprint car fan base really, is Jacksonville and Springfield. Like we're late model country, right? And Fairbury's up the road. Everybody runs some form of late model. And we just kind of had this culture here, just kind of like Farmington, where people want to see sprint cars. And being an open wheel fan myself, I kind of like that. But we don't, we're in late model country, and that's perfectly fine. And it's made Brandon Shepherd that right down the road a great living, and good for all that, and love all that to death. But we just do something different, and it's kind of our pod. It's kind of your pod down there, but there's just not a lot of it. And, you get out to Ohio or Pennsylvania, you got tracks everywhere.
Right.
But it also it does affect our fan base, right? Like you just got way more late model fans around here than we do sprint cars.
Yep. I feel fortunate that, we have a sprint car track 15 or 10 minutes from our house. So we're lucky. Most people don't have that. So, Jacksonville and Springfield, Springfield's 30 minutes away from you or so.
Sure.
But most fans don't get that. They have to travel to see sprint cars. So I feel like
And that's what kind of that MOWA thing is kind of designed for. And it's not, when we are in late model country. So why do we not pay what some of these other things pay? Well, it's because shows got to at least be break even, right? I mean, you can take an expensive sprint car series somewhere one year and have a promoter really get way upside down, but you aren't coming back the next year, right? So we're taking sprint cars to late model tracks and fender tracks. And I found that here when I would have big late model races. I don't have them anymore. I'd love to, but it's unfortunate. But half the fans that would come here every week stay home, and now I've got to replace all those people with a different fan that don't come here every week, and it's hard. And so the MOWA thing is kind of designed to go to tracks that don't race sprint cars every week, to put on a show that's fair for the promoter, knowing that half the people in those stands would rather we not be there. But some people that don't come to that racetrack that often are happy sprint cars are finally there. So it's kind of a happy medium. And that's kind of why we do what we do at the person we do it at, because it's just the nature of the geography we're in. We aren't in sprint car country.
Right. Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. And then the last show I want to highlight, we got Saturday, October 11th, the Ron Milton Race of Champions, which is a MOWA show. And I believe that's the last MOWA show of the year, right?
Yeah, it is. It's always our championship weekend, and it honors our Jacksonville kind of great sprint car racer from Jacksonville, Ron Milton, who passed away many years ago, but really is kind of a person who got our fan base really interested in sprint cars here. And Ron was a co-promoter of the Speedway with Butch Wood for a long number of years and a competition director here. And sort of is what has kept that sprint car culture alive here at Jacksonville. He passed away several years ago, and we do that race in his honor. He is Mr. Jacksonville Sprint Car.
Yeah. That's awesome. And then I got the MOWA schedule pulled up here. We won't go over it all because that takes time. But so you got Highland, Farmington, Jacksonville, Lincoln, Peoria, Spoon River, and Red Hill, and Tri-City on the schedule this year. So you got several tracks there.
If you take Farmington and Red Hill off, I'm in my bed by 12:30. That's important to me, right? So there's two times. There's two trips. I look at that schedule. There's two trips, right? Everything else we can kind of knock out pretty easy and not be a pain. So that's the way we look at things around here.
Me personally, and I know I said this to you in a text, but I like seeing Farmington back on the MOWA schedule, and I'd really love to see if we could get not this year, obviously, but future the Queens Royal to be a MOWA sanctioned event. I think that would help both.
Yeah, I think I see nothing really wrong with that, except for the fact that is a great race with a great tradition. So when you run a race series, you kind of need things to be done your way so they're consistent throughout the year, right? Okay. We run a certain format. We don't qualify, although we used to. We're talking about it again, but I have to be done here at Jacksonville a certain time. Qualifying takes time, and it uses up a racetrack a little bit. There's pros and cons. We do passing points with MOWA, particularly because we're going to a lot of racetracks where they aren't used to sprint cars, and I'm not going to go burn off tires if I can help it. So that, all that said, we don't qualify. We can qualify, but then it's kind of like outside of our normal point situation and that sort of thing. So I'm a consistency kind of guy, and we probably could do that, but I don't feel right bringing a race series into an event that already has tradition and telling you how you need to do things, right? Yeah. And also is why I kind of insisted to Farmington we just have a separate night, because I don't want to come down there and tell you how to do things. I'm not going to tell you how to do things. I'm going to do them the way we do them, because it makes the race series consistent. And not saying we couldn't do the Queens Royal again. It is a race that can stand on its own. It is one of the great races in the Midwest during the year. And you might think you need a MOWA sanction on that. And sure, maybe it would add a little bit, but at the same time, I don't feel like we have no ego around here that like I need to have my name on that race, the MOWA name on that race to puff our chest out or something. We respect everything that happens with Farmington. You guys run great races. Maybe someday we do that. Maybe we do it next year. But again, I think it's just, I don't want to tell you how to run your car race, right?
And again, that's,
that's stuff we don't really realize. We don't think about that. So, I mean, that's good to hear that there's now that opens our eyes to stuff about the behind the scenes stuff that we wouldn't think of. We just think more cars, bigger sanction, let's do it.
Right.
But I feel like that's why, again, I'm going to go back to my comment earlier. You're so successful because you think about that kind of stuff. Whereas guys like us, we're like, oh, we just want to see more cars. But
yeah, we want the Queen's Row to be an outlaw show.
Yeah.
Right. Oh, there you go.
You look at that.
You talk about doing it their way. When that's an outlaw show, you're going to be doing it their way.
And
right?
then Daryl's just probably going to be sitting there.
It's one night I sit back, and once I see everybody sitting in their seats, because I sell and mail every ticket, right? I just sit back and grab a beer and say, my work here is done. Hank and Tommy have it taken care on that side of the fence. They run their own stuff. I am done when the national anthem plays, as long as it comes off without a hitch, right? And we're looking forward to doing that Friday. And man, I hope we get some people to fill this joint.
Yeah. I mean, I did race for a little bit, but as racers, race fans, and us starting this, man, I have learned so much in just a few months.
Right.
Of a lot of behind the scenes stuff that makes you open your eyes about so much different stuff. And I've actually had a guy stop me, one of our race fans from around here, and he's like, man, I'm the first guy to complain about this track sucks. And he goes, I listened to Daryl's show about Farmington when he was just spilling it out there and saying exactly what he wanted. And why ain't you doing this? Why ain't you doing this? And Daryl said, because I can't. I ain't got the money. I can't do this. I can't do that. And he goes, and this is broke, and this happened, and this. And he goes, I was sitting there thinking, man, I'm that guy who bitches at him every week. And he goes, I'll never do that again. And I said, well, at least we turned around one guy,
Right. Yeah. It just never sucks. Like we just $2,000 on a tractor tire replacement. Right now, I have a water leak on this property that's costing me $1,500 a month, and nobody can find it, right? And, it's like all that shit just adds up, right? We're going to find it this week. But, I'm not even racing, and I've got a summer water bill out here. And it's like, it is a money thing, right? It's no different than I owned some race cars before I operated a racetrack. It's all the same. We all make our own donation to the sport, whether you're a car owner or a driver or run a racetrack. And I view it that way. There's been some years where maybe we ended up right side up. And when we do stuff like build this bar and that kind of stuff, put it back in. And then there's been plenty of years where you just pull it out and make that thing float. And, we do try to watch our nickels. You have to, or somebody else is going to lose theirs too when they take over for you, right?
Yeah. Right.
So it's not easy, but neither is, the more respect to the guys who, somehow patch together having a race car, traveling up and down the road, and a wife that's wanting to sell it to get a boat, and kids in school and all that. Like, hey,
yeah.
Hey.
You got anything else you want to talk about?
I think it's been, we've got him for an hour or so there. So that's pretty good. We said, man, we'll try to cut him short a little bit, but this is going to be every time we say that, we still do an hour or more, but that was pretty good.
Look forward to seeing you guys when I'm down there. And man, I hope the pits are wide open Friday night. $50. Go hang with the Outlaws in the Jacksonville pit.
Heck yeah, man. We'll I know I'll see you a few times up there at Jacksonville, but we're looking forward to the Farmington show too. So we really appreciate that.
Yep. Thanks for coming on, and we'll see you shortly.
All right. Take care, guys. Thank you.